What's up, otakus? It's your tour guide here. Um, this is a shout out to Trev, the shipping guru, and Cole's Comic Claims, and Bearded Comic Bro. Just shout out to those guys. Um, yeah, I watched Trev's video on the comic book cover challenge this month, and I thought it was a fun one. Definitely up my alley in terms of books that I like to collect and the artists, covers that I like. So I was planning to do 10 books, but it kind of spilled over. So hopefully, yeah, this is sort of an extended, long version um, of the best team covers in my collection. And um, unlike most people, um, well, let me kind of backtrack. So the first superhero I fell in love with had nothing to do with comics. I got into Superman purely through my love for the movie. I was 6 years old when I watched that movie, and I was just hooked on Superman. So I think before comics, I was buying toys and like I had this read along storybook with a cassette on Superman. I had the 12-inch Superman doll with the spandex clothes that you could take on and off with a cape. I also um, had another Superman figure along with like the Superman belt buckle, just like all kinds of Superman stuff, like underoos, like, and of course I was watching the Saturday morning cartoons, the Super Friends. Um, like there was the Hall of Justice and the Legion of Doom, so the Justice League and the Legion of Doom. Um, yeah, so all of those things kind of came before I really got into Superman comic books. But John Byrne was my first intro into Superman comic books growing up. Um, and I would say, even though my love for Superman was there, my real introduction to, like, I was reading G.I. Joe, I was reading um, like Batman here and there and stuff, but I didn't really start like buying comic books month to month until the X-Men came along. And so we're going to kind of cover, you know, this is going to be a lot of books sort of in my nostalgia wheel, some outside of it, but we'll get to the books. All right, so first up, this is actually one of the first comic books I've ever read, and that's the Secret Wars. This great, miniseries. Unfortunately, I didn't get to read all of the miniseries. I think I read certain issues sporadically. This was one of the issues I read along with the Black Costume issue. Um, and it was such a great comic book, growing up. Like, it really introduced you to all these characters, and this is sort of the first team up of all the Marvel superheroes. So that was just a great kind of moment in comic books. So great cover here by Mike Zeck. You got all the heroes kind of just flying out of the cover. Probably one of the most iconic covers, and just um, yeah, just kind of set the standard for like these team covers, right? Or multi hero covers. Definitely a beautiful cover there, Secret Wars. Really looking forward to, again, the culmination of Secret Wars on screen. And I just really hope they do They add a lot of elements from this. I'm hoping they somewhat stay consistent to it with the Doom and the Beyonder storylines, but we'll just have to see where that goes. Um, the next team isn't necessarily a book I read. It was way before my time, but is definitely an artist I like and a cover that I love. And that is Shazam, the Bronze Age Shazam #3. I think this is volume 2, #3. I just love this black cover. And again, you have Captain Marvel and his team there, the Marvel family, Captain Marvel Jr. and Mary Marvel. Just a great sort of generic team cover. Amazing art by CC Beck. Um, just really, he's just one of those like very innovative, unique, uniquely stylistic artists. Um, just again, couldn't leave this cover out when talking about teams. The next team we're going to focus on for a little bit is Fantastic Four. Now, Fantastic Four, I never really got into Fantastic Four, even to this day, but um, you can't be into comic books without having run into the Fantastic Four, and they're just, it's such a, it's such an important team in the Marvel universe, the first family of superheroes. So it really, like, when I got into Spider-Man and I just started reading all the John Romita Senior stories of Spider-Man. And the further you went back, obviously, if you go all the way back to Amazing Spider-Man #1, the Fantastic Four is there. The Fantastic Four is just such an important team throughout whatever story, even the X-Men, because I got more into X-Men. There was that great uh, late 80s Fantastic Four versus the X-Men. It was like a mini series one with, um, you know, like the Richards boy who had all these, like, he was one of the more powerful mutants and stuff. So um, yeah, I mean, I think when you talk about teams, you have to have some Fantastic Four covers, and I get a chance through Fantastic Four to showcase some really great artists, some of my favorite. Now, this one is it's an interesting cover. It's actually, I think it's a John Buscema cover of What If #1, great classic Fantastic Five cover with Superman, sorry, Spider-Man. Uh, it's the question that what if Spider-Man was part of the Fantastic Four? Um, so just a very interesting scenario there. Uh, it would have been a great team, actually, right? Had Fantastic Four had the foresight to be like, okay, you could join us and pay him the stipend that he was looking for. Um, but anyway, this cover is interesting because the Spider-Man section of this art is John Romita Sr. So it's this sort of like Buscema cover, but John comes in just to do the Spider-Man. So they essentially get the look of the Spider-Man, right? So just a very interesting cover there. And again, one of my favorite covers there. This next one is just a great sort of action cover. And again, it just features this great Kirby art. And yeah, if you're going to showcase Fantastic Four, you need to have some fantastic Kirby art to go with it. And yeah, I always like this cover. It just features like Doom and a great sort of action shot there of all the team um, engaging Doom there with this little mole man in the cover. Kind of a cool action cover anyway. Um, this next one is one of my favorite covers because it's just such an awesome representation of the Fantastic Four. Very different. Very, again, this artist is just known for um, being so different, and his art just really just um, being so eye catching and I mean, it just captures everything about comic book art that we love. So that's why I love this artist, and that's Michael Turner's take on the Fantastic Four. There now he does a couple covers on this run. They're all great. You know, like he has one of like Doom. He has a couple additional ones of the team. And I want to eventually pick those up. I'm not in a rush to like go out and get them. They kind of come my way every now and then. They're really easy to find because they're not that expensive. So I'm just trying to pick them up whenever I run into them for like 50 cents or 25 cents. Try not to pay over $1 for any of these like Turner covers, but this one is again just such a captivating cover there of the team. Really just really unique representation. Turner's unique representation of the team. Love that cover. And I am actively collecting Fantastic Four, the like Burns run on the Fantastic Four. I just think it's a great run. So many, like you could literally just line up uh, the covers and make the case for all of Burns' work on it. But this, I feel like, is really one of his best team covers, and it features all the Marvel, titles and the pretty much all the Marvel superheroes at the time that was who was of importance, right? Pretty much everybody with their own like title is featured there. So you got the whole gamut of superheroes. Um, just a beautiful cover, and then you got, of course, the Fantastic Four there in the foreground. So great 20th anniversary of the Fantastic Four cover. Again, features so many great heroes there. I just love these kinds of covers where you have just so much to look at and enjoy, and really captures the you know what's great about Marvel Comics. Just all these great characters that have grown together with Fantastic Four over the years. So great tribute to Marvel there with that cover. All right, so um, the next some of the next covers I'm going to focus on um, really are books that came out while I was collecting. So especially the next couple of ones, I just love this Deathmate cover. It's a Valiant Image crossover. Um, you got Warpath there, featured along with Turok, Exo Man of War, and um, Mondo, right? So this is just a great, not Mondo. Anyways, a cyber, yeah, Mondo. I think it's from Cyberforce, anyway, right? Great cover there, and love that Silvestri art there. Um, just a real iconic cover for this time, and yeah, this was really hyped back in the day, and I don't know anybody who wasn't collecting at this time that didn't go out and get this crossover title series. Um, Now, of all the Wildcats covers I could have featured, I didn't want to go with number one because number one is just sort of this generic team cover. There's nothing real dynamic about it. Um, I really wanted to get the best cover of the characters I liked on this team. And so this is again, Wildcats is one of my favorite like superhero teams. Um, and I'm really looking forward to seeing Wildcats be more prominent in the DC part of the DC narrative, and I think that day is coming because I think it's just the timing is right for it. Um, they're not considered DC legacy characters or teams yet, but I think they have a great opportunity in this sort of like gun reimagined reset to really bring in something sort of new that's associated with the DCU, um, that can propel a story that fans will like and appreciate. So I think there's a great opportunity there, and hopefully they do it right. But that's again, this is my favorite cover. Uh, so many great Jim Lee covers on his initial run on Wildcats, but this has to be my favorite just because of the Grifter and the Zealot, right? And just love this cover. Great action cover there. Um, Speaking of guns, sort of vision, Justice League is another team that warrants attention, right? Like you got to have Justice League in um, whatever imagination or I guess model of DC. Whatever you're envisioning for DC, the Justice League has to be a huge part of that creative force. Um, and what's really unfortunate is we have not that Justice League has been done. It hasn't really been given an opportunity to um, present itself outside of Zack Snyder's. You know, I know they've done things on on the TV side where they kind of tease Justice League. They did like they've done the new Titans. I don't really follow the television aspect. I did love Smallville, um, and I did watch I think season one of Supergirl, which I really enjoyed. It was light and um, kind of had this Smallville feel in terms of the tone. So I just imagine like all these spin-offs like Green Arrow and like Gotham and the Teen Titans. They're similar to that, WB TV network type production, right? And from what I've seen, it looks like the special effects and um, the production levels are a little higher than what it was, 20 years ago. So that's all cool. But again, uh, we're really waiting for a proper, presentation of Justice League because I know this is probably uh, a very controversial opinion, but I was not a fan of Zack Snyder's Justice League. Um, and the way they shot the principal, it doesn't matter. They could have, whatever you want to do with CG and whatever, the principal um, filming in terms of the writing and character, all that stuff, you just can't make that better. And it was just, not nothing compelling about it. I think it had a couple great scenes with Gal Gadot Wonder Woman, where she's rescuing people from the bank. That was a great scene. There were a couple scenes, where Dark Side and the portal, that was kind of cool, and of course, you know, evil, Superman coming back, um, and kind of fighting the Justice League. That whole thing was set up to be kind of cool and exciting, but there were these elements that were like really cool about it. But overall, when it was stitched together, it just I don't know. I just felt like it was too long and it wasn't properly thought out. Um, you know, you had kind of these like independent like stories, and of course they come together, and then they form this team kind of randomly. Like I like how they portrayed Cyborg's story. It was very consistent with like the comic books, but it just kind of felt like it was just randomly pieced together. And then of course you have this like bigger threat. Um, how do we address that threat? Well, we got to bring Superman back, and it just didn't work for me. It was just too much. Um, it's just all kind of like mashed together, and really it should have been a slower build up and progression to it. So I know DC's been a little bit impatient because they haven't had the vision to build these individual characters and then bring them together, right? It was kind of like, well, we got to get to where Marvel is, and they kind of rushed everything, and that sometimes that's not the best approach. A more calculate, and that's why I'm really looking forward to it's like, hey, what's up, Raphaels? What I'm really looking forward to Jim's Gunn doing is copying that Marvel formula, but doing it in a DC way. And that's really what they need. They need to admit defeat and look at what Marvel did. Right? It was a 10-year process to get to where Marvel is now. Um, a decade process to get to like Infinity War, right? Um, and they're doing a slow process to get to Secret Wars. I don't, and again, I think at this point you have a lot of pitfalls in getting there, but ultimately where they want to go is like, as a fan, that's what I want to see. So um, it is a little frustrating to wait, but ultimately, if they get there and you build up to it, it'll be worth the wait, right? That's what I think. That's what where the Marvel process is maybe a little better. You get these really stylized individual stories, and then they come together at the right time, or they build up the the narrative and interweave it to where you care about everything. And DC's really lack that. Um, Yet, in terms of the characters and the history and really these the legacy stories, they're a lot more compelling than Marvel. So I don't understand. Like the logical conclusion would be like, wait, I care about DC characters more than I do Marvel. But what is Marvel cinema doing that's making people care? Maybe it's a little bit of a generational thing as well. Marvel comes out with Iron Man again. Iron Man was highly successful because it was just a great story, special effects, everything about them. That first movie is really magical. Um, and the really only you see it in DC in terms of Batman movies. I think Christopher Nolan's Batman is like one of the best. It is the best comic book movie that I've ever seen, right? And why couldn't DC have taken that approach with all the characters, right? Not just Batman, got Nolan to do like a Superman, or got Nolan to do something like just kind of integrate it. But it was kind of these standalone projects. They didn't integrate it at all. I don't think he had to integrate Batman. It was just such a huge commercial success. That trilogy was really cool. But it would have been nice to have that kind of thought and patience and investment in production in a movie for Superman. Um, I know they did, to their detriment, they did like a Superman with Brandon Routh. I like that movie actually. They didn't follow through with it, and then they come back a few years later with a Henry Cavill Superman, which is all fine and dandy, but that was too CG. It was too CG heavy, and it strayed too far away from what I am comfortable with in terms of the Superman narrative. It just was like they just presented Zod and presented this sort of alternative, like Superman came in this like huge like ship, like this like battle cruiser or whatever. It was just too much. I just never got into that version of the. And don't I don't think you need like Hulk Hogan wrestler uh, Superman. You don't need a guy with like huge. I mean, you want a guy with a good body, but I think like ultimately Superman's like has to be Clark Kent at the end of the day. And when you see a guy like Henry Cavill playing Clark Kent, you don't put two and two together. You're like, hey, wait, Superman, he's buff. Wait, Clark Kent, he's buff too, dude. Aren't they the same guy? Duh. A real, a better imagination of that would have been someone like Christopher Reeve, where you have a guy who can be a commanding physical presence, but also kind of downplay that with his body language and demeanor, right? Reeve was a perfect Superman, and that transformation between this bumbling, Clark Kent and the Man of Steel was really on display there. And so um, they should go back to that. You don't need Arnold Schwarzenegger to play Superman. Superman should just be sort of a well athletic built, tall, like physical specimen, but who can kind of play also an average Joe and like superhero, like that embodiment in one person. And anyway, hopefully they do go back to that kind of basic um, premise. And yeah, again, DC is, if you want DC to have success, Superman has to be at the forefront of whatever you produce. And so to this point, ever since Keaton Batman, it's always been Batman, 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 and they need to get back to like the drawing board, like literally completely like back. And that's what I love about Gunn. I think they're doing a very thoughtful process on what his universe, his alternative timeline of DC is going to be. And so I've been, dragging on about this, but something like this would be great to see, like uh, this version of Justice League, the Giffen De Mateus Justice League, or even the Justice League International. These are just great covers. I love these. Um, I love these Kevin Maguire covers. It's just this like nice portrait, of the superheroes there that captures all their individual characteristics or personalities there. They really are kind of like individualistic. You can kind of tell and get a sense of who each one is just through the cover. And that's what I love about this team cover. So and again, I got to connect with Kevin Maguire recently. He's a great guy. I got to just tell him how much of a fan I am of his work, and I didn't want to take too much of his time, but he was gracious enough to sign the comics, and again, I said I just love your work on that run. He He said thank you. That was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. All right, so it wouldn't be up to this point. I don't think other than the Wildcats covered too much Jim Lee. And while this is a great Jim Lee Justice League cover, I think this is like one of the best. And it's like, it's a landscape cover. I really hate this Justice League design, and this is kind of what I think. This is, I think, what they were trying to bring to the Snyder version. They're like trying to capture this essence, which, again, I didn't really. I don't think this version of the New 52. It might work well in comic books, but it's not necessarily a great translation into a movie. You probably don't want to literally bring what you're seeing here into a movie, but that's what they tried to do. And anyway, I hate the costume designs in this. I love Jim Lee, don't get me wrong, but sometimes even the greats can mess up, and I just don't like. If anything, Batman's suit makes sense. You probably want Batman in like some kind of armored, because he's a normal guy, right? But like Superman's suit, they just changed it too much. Wonder Woman, her costume just makes absolutely no sense. They went too far on her redesign. Aquaman kind of looks the same. He's fine. Green Lantern even looks the same. Flash is fine. Cyborg is fine. It's just the Trinity, like the Wonder Woman, Superman in this redesign on this cover. Just it's not my cup of tea. But again, favorite artist of all time, so he gets a pass. Um, Here's kind of like, this is a great, something like this would even be in today's, like, you could literally bring a story like this to the big screen, right? It wouldn't be like, you don't have to have everything like about warfare and like you can like design a story that brings something like Starro. I know Starro appeared in Suicide Squad. That was great to see Starro there. But you know what I mean? Like, it would have been good to see Starro in the context of the Justice League, right? Like, here comes this like big alien thing, and the superheroes have to get together. Out not, you know, without Superman, for whatever reason, Superman was just maybe um, deposed to do something else. But bring in the other member. I mean, Green Lantern technically could take care of Starro, right? But although in here he doesn't really do an effective job of neutralizing him, but it takes the entire team to handle this issue. And so even though it's like a simple story and whatever, I think if you brought in good people to do this and translate them to big screen, you could do it. Um, that would have been great for comic. That would have been great for DC, and hopefully. And but the thing is, they can't do it now. Why? Because you've introduced Starro in another movie, and you pretty much like took a big crap on the Justice League. So it's like, I'm glad James Gunn has indicated he's going to do kind of take a he's like looking at things like this and trying to create sort of a more a team that maybe necessarily doesn't have all the superhero, like the godlike superheroes, but more the street level minor type characters. That's probably a good approach, and one that still remains consistent and respective of um, the DC universe. So looking for, anyway, just kind of now kind of moving away from DC. We're going to get into what I uh, read and loved. growing up and collecting comic books. This is actually um, one of the comic books that got me into X-Men, and that's this cover just drew me in, right? This great Art Adams covered the team. Man, is that a classic? Now this is a reprint of Giant Size X-Men. I don't think I will ever own, like, I can own like facsimile copies, but I'll never own like a first print Giant Size X-Men. It's just, if I do end up owning it for however I go about that, um, maybe I win the lottery, or I come across it in a dollar bin at a at a flea market or something. However, I for me it's one of the comics everybody wants. I would put it. I mean, there's like probably 3 or 4 comic books that, I mean, there's a lot of comics books I can't afford. Let's just be realistic, okay? Um, the majority of us will never. Um, I mean, we'll see it at a comic shop or at a comic show. We'll see. Um, I've seen like I've seen. I've held a copy of this. Um, I'll probably see or hold a copy of Giant Size X-Men at some point, but I will never own a copy. And that's just something you know, I've come to accept. But this is a book that, for me, it has that kind of same feel, like, because this is actually my introduction to X-Men. So the fact that it's like the introduction of the new team, it was my introduction to Wolverine, and this entire thing. And then the Wolverine series comes out just a few years after this, his standalone. Um, so it was just like, at that time, it was everything was mutants. Um, I enjoyed reading everything that was coming out, X Men. Uh, you know, it was just a great time to be reading the Uncanny X Men, classic X Men, kind of reading them parallel to each other. Um, there was another. I don't know if you guys remember. I think it was called Meltdown. It was with Havoc and X Wolverine. Great, sort of this like painted art style. It was just incredibly realistic, uh, sort of art panels. Very, very uh, cool to read, and it was a great story there too. So a lot of cool stuff to read and collect during that time. Everything was centered around X Men. I think, yeah, thanks, man. My favorite Adams cover as well. And he did a lot of great covers on like the Evolutionary War, like with the X babies and stuff. I just remembered there were a lot of great Art Adams X Men related covers, like Long Shot and Mojo, and yeah. But yeah, great team cover there. And then, like, around, like Jim Lee introduces the X Men, of course, that kind of reaches a feverish pitch. And then he leaves the X Men, he leaves Marvel, and X Men still was compelling because they had, Wolverine, Gambit, Bishop, Cable. They just, there was a lot going on with like these new members, and the new team coming together, and like X Force branching off, X Men and X Uncanny kind of running parallel. So it was kind of a new era for X-Men, really exciting. And then it kind of all comes together in uh, Age of Apocalypse, um, and the reset, sort of like the time continuum being disrupted with the death of Xavier, and it sets up this new man. I remember this, and to this day, I just love this cover because of the reimagination of Wolverine there with the one hand, black costume there, Bishop, Bishop looking like, yeah, just a new look for Bishop. Sunfire is a new look. Um, Blink, we don't see her for the first time. Jean Grey. I mean, this entire like um, sort of dystopian vision of the X Men was just such a big. I was sort of like the big comic book moment in my history of reading X Men, and so I know that sounds weird, um, but that's what it was back in the '90s, and um, I'm sure there's a lot of great stories that have come in the last 20 years, which is cool. I just haven't read. I mean, I'm looking forward to maybe reading more, but I haven't really invested a lot of time doing that. So, along with that great cover, I do want to feature two Jim Lee covers. First off, this is Jim Lee's last cover of the X Men. And I'm not going to feature the number one cover, like X Men number one. That's kind of like cliche to show that one off, but I will show off this one. This is came out right around the time X Men one was really just popping off, and it's just this great cover of them in just plain clothes, like a formal plain coat, formal clothes, and man, Psylocke looks really good in that dress. Yeah, hard to keep your eyes off Psylocke in that one. All right, so probably again my top team cover. I guess if you have all of these are just great covers, but if you ask me um, if I have a favorite out of like team covers, I'm going to go with this one, and uh, I really hope they. Again, I think the foundation of DC, the way they're setting it up. I know there's been very little mention of Wonder Woman. We don't know how Batman's going to integrate into the James Gunn DCU, and I think that's a good thing. Like, just keep because they're coming. We just don't. We're not. Basically, the announcement of Superman is a good foundational pillar, and then you're going to build the other pillars at the same time, right? So, um, this is my choice of just my favorite team cover for this challenge, and that is Jim Lee's Trinity. And just a great cover there on this great Jeff Loeb, Michael Turner run. And we have Superman. He has his red underpants back on, right? This is the way it should have always been. Um, but great cover there. And again, I think the Trinity. I think you have to establish the Trinity before you establish. I think I've have all these theories about how they should do Justice League, and I'm just going to give you how I think um, they should build up to the Justice League. I really think Justice League should be kind of like um, they should start Justice League off as something led by Batman, I really think it should be like Batman, because Batman always works alone. And, he brings on like Dick Grayson out of like a charity, like a need for charity. Like he sees himself in Dick Grayson. So he brings him on as he's the kind of the legal guardian, right, of this kid, and then gets him irresponsibly brings him along on these like crusades, right, to fight crime. Um, but normally, he doesn't work with other superheroes and whatnot. But that that's an exception. Justice League is an exception to that. He realizes, okay, here, like working with Superman and Wonder Woman, gee, I'm just like this like regular guy, but these two we can take down like regimes, right? Or they do a lot more. And so I think rather than Batman coming to like an already formed Justice League with Superman and Wonder Woman at the forefront, it'd be cool to see Batman kind of realize, you know what, I can't do this by myself. I'm going to recruit people who I think can help in my cause. And he's going to recruit guys, like vet them out to see if they have the passion to really put others above, like really like fight for justice, right? Like, um, and so I like Batman would just kind of going out and recruiting people and being like, hey, look, let's, kind of vetting them and seeing, okay, hey, you want to form this thing called Justice League? I'll set up this nice headquarters for us with the Wayne Foundation money, or just not tell them where it's coming from, just set something up and like kind of bring in one by one like heroes and give them the whole like, are you in or are you out kind of thing, and they go on these like missions and stuff and kind of make more and more progress and refine the team and grow it from there. I think that's a really compelling way to like bring Batman and the Justice League in as sort of this like upstart of, and a challenging upstart. And it's like hard to put in together a team of people who complement one another and can bring different skill sets, right? And then once you establish that, like, hey, this thing isn't so bad. Like Justice League is actually you know, having a positive effect on whether it's crime, whether it's battling, like mutants or battling superheroes or evil superheroes. You have this thing that's established, and then you have buy-in from like the big guns, like Superman, like okay, I'm in. Wonder Woman's like I'm in. Green Lantern's like I'm in. Aquaman's like I'm in, and then you have this real elevation of going from like street level cases to like cosmic cases or whatever. Like it's just this like you know uh, algebraic like what's the word I'm looking for, the parabolic increase in terms of what the Justice League means to the world, right? So I mean that's kind of like that's how I think it would be cool to introduce them. I don't know if that how you know you'd obviously have to introduce Justice League as something that's like not that effective, right? Because there's just a lot of learning and kind of like um, a learning process that's involved. But then you could very quickly elevate that, along like across 2, 3 movies that show a progression, introduce new characters, introduce new, you know, like, and again, you don't have to bring in like a doomsday. You don't have to bring it. You can keep it simple. Like they're just trying to um, maybe they're addressing Gotham's rogue gallery. Like Batman can't tackle all the rogue gallery victims by gallery by himself. So he brings in these makeshift guys to help him, right? And they tackle that issue first, and then it just elevates from there. So I mean, just there's a lot of ways they can be thoughtful about how to build the Justice League. They got to start somewhere, right? So I'll be interested to see how they build that team, what brings X and Y superheroes to the table. And again, I think where Zack Snyder's Justice League ran into issues was they brought everybody to the table too fast, too soon. They just kind of hey, we're gonna bring in Flash, we're gonna bring in Aquaman, and kind of like it was just too convenient too soon. So anyway, that's my take. Now I know Gunn probably has his own vision for it, and it'll be along those lines, where it's something you don't really expect, but it'll build up to eventually include everyone. And I'm really, as a fan, I'm looking forward to how that translates. So anyway, Trinity at some point, you got to have the Trinity. I would like to see a movie called The Trinity. Okay. And then, yeah, just all my cool X-Men team covers and Fantastic Four covers. So hope you enjoyed this. I know it was long. I've probably never seen cover challenge that go this long, but I had fun just talking about books in my collection, and hope you enjoyed it too. So shout out to you guys, Cole and Bearded. I think you guys, this comic cover challenge is really a gift to the comic book community. Just like a fun thing to do every once in a while, especially when like the topics are fun like this. I think I've done like 3 or 4 of these challenges, and I've had fun with every one of them. I don't like religiously go each month to see what the challenge is, but again, I watched Trev's video and I thought I had fun watching his video, so it motivated me, inspired me to do my own. So shout out to you guys. Thanks for being great community members. And I do want to say, to Cole. Cole is in so we have a comic book community fantasy league. It's 8 teams. Cole is one of the teams I'm competing against. So I do want to, Cole, if you're watching this, again, love the cover challenge for this month, but also, I think you have a pretty strong team. I like the the team you've drafted, but I'm coming for you, man. Fantasy baseball, there is no mercy. Mercy is for the weak. All right, so yeah, prepare for that. Prepare for whatever matchup. I think it'll be within the first 8 weeks we get set up. So looking forward to taking you down, and then. To the other comic book community members in my league, Roscoe, Tylock. I think Tylock's, you and I are in week 1. Yeah. I'm 99.9999% sure I'm taking you down. And yeah, I mean, it's a pretty sure thing. So get ready for a week 1 loss, and I hope the pummeling doesn't discourage you to quit so early in the season. But that's what's going to happen. All right, thanks for watching my video. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.